It was a dark winter night. The fog surrounding the old village cemetery concealed the inscriptions on the tombstones. The wind was softly howling, and the branches of the trees were swaying like ghostly hands in the graveyard. This cemetery was known as the Jinn cemetery in the village. For years, the villagers were afraid to even approach here after nightfall, because every night terrifying sounds would come from the old water well standing right in the middle of the cemetery. Sometimes groans, sometimes whispers, sometimes echoes like muffled screams. They never let anyone rest peacefully at night. The villagers would say that the well belonged to the Jinn and that a secret was hidden there. Ahmet was a brave young man who did not believe in such stories. That night, while sitting with his friends, discussions about the cemetery began. Everyone's face was pale, but Ahmet's mocking smile did not change. Kokako is full of cowards. There is no such thing as genies. If there are, I'll go and speak face to face, he said, and decided to go to the cemetery despite his friend's objections. Taking a flashlight, a knife, and a thick jacket with him, he headed towards the cemetery around midnight. As he got closer to the cemetery, a slight unease filled him, but he laughed mockingly to give himself courage. Ridiculous, he murmured. When he pushed the iron gate and went inside, he felt a hope. Was it a light breeze or a sound coming from the depths of the graveyard? He didn't want to find the answer to this question, because his real target was the well. As he walked towards the depths of the cemetery, the cold, moss-covered surfaces of the tombstones and the faded writings on them caught his attention. Some of the tombstones had Arabic inscriptions, and most were worn out. When he reached the place where the well was, the surrounding silence became unbearable. The night had become completely quiet. There was neither a bird's sound nor the rustling of leaves. When he got right up to the edge of the well, a sound was heard from deep within. A cry, a thin woman's voice, echoed painfully. Ahmet hesitated at first, wanted to go back, but his pride held him back. "Who is there?" he shouted. His voice echoed in the cemetery, but no answer came. Ahmet gathered his courage, took out his flashlight, and shone it into the well. The light of the torch disappeared at a point in the dark depth, but suddenly he saw movement deep down, a dark shape. What first appeared to be a shadow slowly began to take form. What Ahmet saw couldn't be real. In the depths of the well, a human-like being without a face was looking at him, as if that being was climbing up the walls of the well. Ahmet quickly pulled back. At that moment, a sound came from the well, a deep, muffled whisper. "Why did you come?" This whisper seemed both near and far. Ahmet's heart started pounding rapidly. He tried to turn and run away in fear, but his foot caught on a tombstone and he fell to the ground. The flashlight slipped from his hand and darkness enveloped everything. Just as he tried to get up from the ground, he saw a black smoke emanating from the well slowly take shape. This smoke had taken on a human-like form, but had no eyes or face. It was just darkness. Ahmet got up and started running. However, no matter which direction he went in the cemetery, he always ended up at the same place. It was as if the cemetery's stones, paths, and trees were moving, bringing him back around the well. With each breath, he became more exhausted. The whispers around him began to increase. The whispers seemed to be in another language and were unintelligible, yet they contained a sense of threat. Finally, Ahmet collapsed to the ground from exhaustion. The shadow rising from the well glided toward him and began to circle around. "You have disturbed us," said the voice. "Now you will stay with us." Ahmet's eyes widened, but he couldn't move. Everything darkened before his eyes. By morning, the villagers set out to search for Ahmet. When they reached the well, they found only Ahmet's lantern and his torn jacket. Ahmet himself was nowhere to be found. No one could find out what happened that night. However, from that day on, the sounds from the well began to be heard more frequently. Now, among those sounds were Ahmet's whispers, desperately asking for help. The graveyard became a place too frightening for anyone to dare enter again. The villagers whispered that Ahmet's spirit was now in the depths of the well with the demons, and no one ever approached that cursed well in the cemetery again.